Hello my dears, here we are again. This is the second video of this series about the subjunctive. The first video was about the present subjunctive, and in this video we will talk about the pretérito imperfeito of the subjunctive. And the same way as in the last video, I won't translate all the examples into English. I will translate some because it's important that you understand the idea that the sentence is expressing. But again, the same way I did in the last video, you will find all the examples with their meanings in the description of the video, okay? First advice I want to give you, watch the first video because I will be comparing these two tenses throughout the video because there are many similarities. They express kind of the same ideas. So if you watch the first one, you will understand this one better, especially because I will even use some of the examples I gave in the first video in this video as well, just changing the conjugation, okay? Well, let's start talking again about the difference between the subjunctive and the indicative. As I said in the first video, the basic difference is that the indicative express real facts and the subjunctive express ideas, possibilities, wishes, okay? Let's see the sentence comparing indicative and subjunctive, but now in the past of subjunctive, the pretérito imperfeito. So say this sentence: eu estudo muito. I study a lot. It's a fact. Now, in the pretérito imperfeito of the subjunctive, it could be: minha mãe queria que eu estudasse muito. My mom wanted me to study a lot. So it was my mom's desire, okay? Second example: você come frutas e verduras. You eat fruits and vegetables. Again, it's a fact. Now, seria aconselhável que você comesse frutas e verduras. It would be advisable that you ate fruits and vegetables. Another example: nós assistimos a filmes todo sábado. We watch movies every Saturday. A fact. Now, o professor pediu que nós assistíssemos a filmes. The teacher asked us that we watched movies. Okay? So, the present subjunctive, as I said in the last video, is used to express orders, wishes, and the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive also expresses wishes and doubts as the present subjunctive. It's interesting because I would say that in the present subjunctive, when you use the present subjunctive to express wish, request, an order, it is very direct, okay? So, for example, eu quero que você faça isso. This is present subjunctive. I want you to do that. I can express the same request using pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive, and it will sound more polite, less demanding, like eu queria que você fizesse isso. I wanted that you did that. You know, like, I want you to do that. Eu quero que você faça isso versus eu queria que você fizesse isso. So they both express an idea of a request, but pretérito imperfeito is less demanding, okay? Now, as I said, the pretérito imperfeito is also used to express wishes and doubts. Let's see some examples. Eu pedi que você viesse aqui hoje. I asked that you came here today. Eles queriam que a gente jantasse com eles amanhã. They wanted us to have dinner with them tomorrow. Ela duvidou que eu conseguisse emagrecer. She doubted that I would be able to lose weight. ok? Talvez nós pudéssemos viajar ano que vem. Maybe we could travel next year. The pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive is also used to give an advice and express an opinion. It's a very famous sentence when we say, se eu fosse você, it means if I were you, so we use it a lot to express our opinion and give an advice. For example, se eu fosse você, jamais faria isso. If I were you, I would never do that. Or, ela disse que se estivesse no meu lugar, falaria a verdade. She said that if she were in my place, she would speak the truth. Okay? But now, I would say that the main and most known use of this tense is to talk about hypothesis. It's the famous conditional, okay? Like if something happened, some other thing would happen. Some examples. Ela seria mais feliz se morasse em outra cidade. So she would be happier if she lived in another city. O que você faria se ganhasse na loteria? What would you do if you won the lottery? Okay? Another example. Eles conseguiriam resolver os problemas juntos se parassem de discutir. So, they would be able to resolve their problems together if they stopped arguing. Okay? Another example. Nossos pais ficariam orgulhosos se nós arrumássemos o quarto. Our parents would be proud if we tidied up our bedroom. Okay? Now, what is the structure of this tense? What is the structure of the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive? Again, as any other tense in the subjunctive, it doesn't work on its own, okay? It requires a main sentence. It requires another verb in the sentence to guide the meaning, okay? It requires a specific word. The most common one is the if, se, okay? So many sentences in the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive will start with the se, okay? So these are some hints for you to recognize this tense. Now, the difference between the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive and the present subjunctive that we saw in the last video is that the verbs in the main sentence must be in the past tense of indicativo. Let's see some examples. Ele quis que eu ficasse até mais tarde. Ele queria que eu ficasse até mais tarde. Now, the translation into English of this one is exactly the same. Like, you wanted me to stay until later. What I want to point out here is that the verb of the main sentence needs to be in the past tense of the indicative. But you know that the past tense of the indicative has two tenses, pretérito perfeito and pretérito imperfeito. Ele quis is pretérito perfeito. Ele queria is pretérito imperfeito. But to create a sentence in the pretérito imperfeito of the subjunctive, both tenses of the indicative can be used. Okay? That's what I wanted to show you here. So, ele quis que eu ficasse, ele queria que eu ficasse. So the verb in the subjunctive is ficasse, and the verb in the main sentence is querer, to want. But in one sentence you have it in the pretérito perfeito, quis, and in the other sentence you have it in the pretérito imperfeito of the indicative, queria. Okay? Another example. Ele sofreria se eu não ficasse até mais tarde. Now, look. Ele sofreria se eu não ficasse até mais tarde. In this sentence, the verb in the main sentence is in the futuro do pretérito of the indicative. So this is another possibility for the structure. You have a sentence in the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive where the verb in the main sentence is in the past tense. Ele quis que eu ficasse, ele queria que eu ficasse. Now in this one, the conditional one, the verb in the main sentence is in the futuro do pretérito, which is equivalent to the would plus verb in English. So, ele sofreria se eu não ficasse. He would suffer if I didn't stay. Okay? Now, do you remember that in the last video I gave you a list of common verbs that are often used to introduce a sentence in the present subjunctive, right? So, the same verbs can be used to introduce a sentence in the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive because both tenses are used to express wishes and doubts, okay? What will be the difference? The way you conjugate the verb in the main sentence, okay? So, let's see. We have the verbs desejar, querer, pedir, preferir, exigir, insistir, proibir, precisar, esperar, duvidar, gostar, não achar, não pensar, não acreditar. In the present subjunctive, you would have to conjugate them in the present of indicative, right? Now, for the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive, what you have to do? You have to conjugate them in the past of indicative or in the futuro do pretérito of indicative. Let's see just a few examples of some of them. Like desejar. Eu desejei que você ficasse aqui comigo. Verb desejar conjugated in the past tense. A very common construction is using the verb gostar. Eu gostaria que você fizesse isso por mim. I would like you to do this for me. So this, eu gostaria, is futuro do pretérito of indicative. I would like, okay? So you have the same verbs, okay? But if you conjugate them in the past or futuro do pretérito, your sentence must be in the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive, not present of subjunctive anymore. Another example. Eu não pensei, past, que isso pudesse acontecer. Eu não pensei que isso pudesse acontecer. Okay? Apart from these verbs, we also have some common words that are used to introduce a sentence in the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive. The word talvez is in the list again. Also, words like embora and se. The se, you already know, it's the if, okay? An example with embora. Embora eu quisesse ficar, precisei voltar para casa. Embora eu quisesse, ok? Precisei voltar para casa. There is an expression that is very common here, and we use it a lot, and it has the same meaning of tomara in the present subjunctive. You remember the word tomara like a wish, but tomara, when you use tomara, you need to conjugate the verb in the present subjunctive. An equivalent of this for the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive is the expression quem dera. Quem dera. An example. Quem dera ela soubesse tudo que eu fiz por ela. It's like saying, I wish she knew everything I did for her. Okay? So the idea is similar. The idea that it expresses. Quem dera ela soubesse. Okay? Also, all those expressions we saw in the last video using they appear here again. But now, instead of you need to conjugate the verb in the past tense. Foi or era. So you have foi or era possível, foi or era impossível, provável, importante, necessário, fundamental, melhor, bom. So you can build a sentence using all these words starting with the verb ser, conjugated in the past tense, foi or era. An example: foi melhor que as coisas acontecessem desse jeito. Era provável que todos chegassem atrasados. Okay? Now, there are also some expressions that appeared in the present subjunctive and some others that are more common in the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive, like para que, ainda que, mesmo que, contanto que, desde que, sem que, antes que, and basta que. I will give you examples with sem que, antes que, and basta que, because they are actually very common to be used in this tense. For example, ele abriu a porta sem que ela notasse. Ele abriu a porta sem que ela notasse. Antes que eu me desse conta, o filme acabou. This is an expression that you will find in my video about expressions with the verb dar. Sem que, antes que eu me desse conta. It's like before I realized the movie was over. Antes que eu me desse conta, o filme acabou. Another example. Bastou que chovesse um pouco para que o mato crescesse muito. Bastou que chovesse um pouco para que o mato crescesse muito. So here you have a list with the most common verbs, words and expressions that often appear in sentence with the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive. Okay? Now, how do you conjugate verbs in the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive? What is the pattern? What is the rule? The basis is the third person plural of the pretérito perfeito of indicative. So the third person plural is they, okay? Eles, elas, or vocês. You need this as a basis, then you remove the ending rão, R-A-M, and you add the other endings for pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive. So, let's see the AR verbs. Let's use the verb falar as an example. The third person plural of pretérito perfeito of indicative is eles falaram. They spoke, okay? You remove the rão and you add SSE for eu, você, ele, ela, a gente. You add SSemos for nós and SSem for eles, elas, vocês. So you have se eu falasse, se você, ele, ela, a gente falasse, se nós falássemos, se vocês, eles, elas falassem, ok? You have the same endings for ER verbs and IR verbs. So, let's see the verb comer. They ate, eles comeram. You remove the rão and you add SSE for eu, você, ele, ela, a gente. SSemos for nós, we. And SSem for vocês, eles, elas. So, se eu comesse, se você, ele, ela, a gente comesse, se nós comêssemos, se eles, se elas, se vocês comessem. And finally, IR verbs. Let's use assistir. In the pretérito perfeito of subjunctive, they watched, eles assistiram. You remove the rão and we have se eu assistisse, se você, ele, ela, a gente assistisse, se nós assistíssemos, se vocês, se eles, se elas assistissem. Okay? Now, what about those irregular verbs and those special crazy verbs that we saw in the last video? That's very interesting. They will follow the same pattern. So, let's take a look at that list we saw in the first video. The irregular verbs we saw were fazer, vir, ter, dizer, ver, poder, ler, pedir, ouvir, and trazer. And the special crazy verbs that didn't follow the pattern in the present subjunctive were ser, estar, querer, ir, dar, saber, and haver. Right? Now, these verbs will follow the pattern I just mentioned. The only thing you need to know is their conjugation in the third person plural of pretérito perfeito of indicative. You remove rão and you add these endings SSI, SSemos, SSem. So I will talk only about some of them, and your exercise is to write the conjugation of the others in the comments, okay? So let's see, for example, the verb fazer, okay? Fazer in the pretérito perfeito of indicative, the third person plural is eles fizeram. Fizeram. It's irregular. You remove the rão, and in the subjunctive you will have se eu fizesse, se você, ele, ela, a gente fizesse, se nós fizéssemos, se eles fizessem. Another one, poder, okay? In the pretérito perfeito of indicative, third person plural, eles puderam is irregular. So you remove the rão and you will have se eu pudesse, se você, ele, ela, a gente pudesse, se nós pudéssemos, se eles pudessem. Okay? So you see that even the irregular verbs, they follow this pattern. You just need to know their irregular conjugations in the pretérito perfeito of indicative. Now let's see the verb ir, okay? The verb ir is a very irregular verb. In the pretérito perfeito of indicative, third person plural, they went. In Portuguese, eles foram. Eles foram. Remove the rão. In the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive, se eu fosse, se ele, ela, você, a gente fosse, se nós fôssemos, se eles fossem. Okay? So, these verbs follow the pattern. As an exercise, you can try to choose some of the others, crazy, irregular ones, and write the conjugation in the comment below. Okay? Well, that's it. I hope you could understand better the idea of the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive. Again, I will leave you now with a short clip with some Brazilian songs where the pretérito imperfeito of subjunctive appears. Okay? I hope you have enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful for you. And I see you in the next video where we will talk about the future subjunctive. Bye bye!
Amor daquela vez como se fosse a última. Beijou sua mulher como se fosse a última. E cada filho seu como se fosse o único. E atravessou a rua com seu passo tímido.
Se a gente não dissesse tudo tão depressa, se não fizesse tudo tão depressa, se não tivesse exagerado a dose, podia ter vivido um grande amor.
Meu amor, o que você faria se só te restasse um dia? Se o mundo fosse acabar, me diz o que você faria.
Talvez se o mundo desfocasse e só se visse a gente e todas as pessoas que sobrassem fossem meros figurantes. Se a vida decidisse mudar de roteirista e o gênero trocasse de repente num instante.